say that was close. He said he couldn't see us because we were that close.
What?
And then he backed up and realized where we were.
Long story short, my dad just almost backed into my car. Hey guys, it's Tyler from the Bears Den and Charlie, my sister. And today I wanted to film a tips for incoming freshmen because it is that time of year, it is coming up. And I figured, why not bring my sister along with me? And we're on a drive right now. My sister never lived on campus, whereas I've lived on campus for 2 years, so we have two kind of different perspectives of it. With that being said, my first tip for incoming freshmen is gonna be like, be careful while you're selecting your roommates. And what I mean by that is, I know a lot of people who like chose who they were gonna room with. Like it was somebody that they were friends with, and sometimes you can be friends with somebody, but that does not mean you can successfully share a bedroom with them for an entire year. I had great luck just getting a random roommate, and I ended up with Hannah, and I love her so much, and we are still best friends to this day.
My most important piece of advice for freshmen is that college is a lot different than high school, and in my opinion the biggest difference was that your professors aren't constantly checking up on you to make sure you're on track with your assignments. So it's really important that you take the time to read your syllabus and know what's coming next so that you can be prepared. And it's also really important to make sure you're planning your time so that you can give the appropriate amount of time to the appropriate task. So you don't want to spend 2 weeks on like a chapter review, and you don't want to spend 3 nights on studying for your exam.
You have to get a planner. Like, I know people who literally just use their notes app and like just refresh it every week. I use Outlook calendar for like my day-to-day schedule, and then I use a planner to write all my homework in. It really helps to be able to visualize how much you have to do, and also to be able to cross off what you've done. That way you make sure you're not missing any assignments. Sometimes there are tasks that your teachers will give you that aren't vital. And by that I mean, I've had classes where we are required to read this chapter this week, and then you go to the lecture and the teacher tells you word for word what the book said. Like, you didn't need to read it because they just gave you all the important information right then and there. You'll get the hang of it once you start going to class and figuring out what's important and what's not. But yeah, it's very good to prioritize your time.
Self-care is like really important, and I know that everybody has heard that word and everybody knows like some things you have to do, but this is like a huge transition in your life, and it's a really big deal that you're like coming into this new space and growing up and everything's changing. Don't feel like you can't do it just because it's a little bit scary. I promise you can do it. At one time, college was like my biggest fear, but I'm at my senior year now, and I can confidently say that it wasn't that bad. And so even though it's a little bit scary, I know that you can do it. It's just a matter of getting used to it. So just give it time. Give it 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You'll get used to the rhythm of things and you'll figure out your place.
Like you're saying, self-care is important. What do you do to take care of yourself? Like when you're really stressed out, you've had a long week, you finally got everything done, what do you do?
Well, one thing that always helps me is I have a daily meditation practice, which sounds silly, but if you can even set aside 5 minutes a day, it can really help just to have that space to relax. And those 5 minutes, I'm not worrying about anything.
The simplest pleasure that I have in my life is when I go to bed at night and I grab a snack and I watch Netflix before I go to sleep. Laying in my bed and watching whatever show I'm watching at the time and just eating. That and my morning cup of coffee. Those two things keep me going.
Yep.
In the morning while I do my makeup, I drink my coffee. I listen to The Views podcast by David Dobrik and Jason Nash. And I find that to be really helpful because it's like a funny, uplifting podcast, and it like makes starting the day easier. So you just have to find whatever helps you in the small ways.
You don't have to do like a whole bubble bath and face mask and wash your sheets and all that every Sunday. It just has to be even 5 minutes of your day you set aside just for yourself, because once you lose those like rituals, it can become really difficult to maintain your mental health from that point on. If there's something that's really exciting to you that you're really passionate about, try to pursue it as best you can. Follow those things that make you feel alive because they're really important.
Well said. Some of the best advice I ever got was when I was a freshman in high school, and that is, it is only your first day once. That first day of college is so overwhelming, and the feeling the night before, you're like sick to your stomach, you're like, I don't even know where my classes are. It's terrifying. We've both been there, but it is only your first day once. You get that first day out of the way, and then you're in it, and you're doing it every day, and it just becomes routine. So try not to be as scared. I know it's gonna be scary regardless. I don't think there's really anything I can say that will make it not scary, but just know it's just your first day once, and then you're done with it. You got it out of the way. You don't ever have to have a first day ever again.
Once you figure out your schedule, it's a good idea to kind of walk around campus if you can and figure out where the classrooms are and figure out the best path to get from building to building, because you don't want to be running around on the first day potentially being late.
My freshman year, I went and I walked around campus with my Google Maps, and I just like looked up every building in order of my schedule and walked the campus and figured out where everything was. But if you do get lost on your first day, the good news is all of the buildings on campus are on Google Maps, so you can figure it out. And also on the first day, a lot of the buildings inside will have like big signs that tell you where the classrooms are, because in some buildings there's classrooms that start with 00, and you may not know this, but that means it's in the basement, unless you're in Temple Hall. For some reason, the 00 lecture halls in Temple are on the first floor, and then in every other building it means you're in the basement.
If you're worried about what school supplies you're gonna need, I would start out with just a 5-subject notebook and a pen or a pencil, and then go from there and find out what, because some people are like, I need to have a binder for every class, I need to have a folder, I need to have loose leaf paper, and some people are like, I'm just gonna take notes on my tablet, and whatever works for you is fine. But I was really stressed about school supplies when I first started.
I totally advise against buying a binder for every class, because I did that, and you know what? I ended up with a ton of empty binders, because a lot of the stuff that you do is going to be taking notes by hand in a notebook or on a tablet or whatever, or maybe you like to type them. People do that too. But you don't get a lot of handouts in college the way that you do like in high school. You don't get a lot of worksheets. Most of it is just taking notes from lectures, and then your homework is mostly online. I had a 5-subject notebook my freshman year, and that worked totally fine. But after having that, I realized that some classes, like I ran out of paper in that 5-subject notebook. And then I had to switch to a different notebook, which really stressed me out because I like having all my stuff in the same place. I'm really particular about stuff like that. So I personally recommend getting one notebook for every class, but sometimes you don't even need a notebook for a class, so then sometimes you end up with a bunch of empty notebooks.
If you're working while you're in school, that is really hard, and I'm really proud of you.
Amen.
Because it's not easy.
No, ma'am.
But I just want you to know that it doesn't make you any less than, and it's going to give you a lot of valuable life experience that you're going to really appreciate when you go into the workforce in the future.
If you're working during college, good for you. Working during college really teaches you a lot of very valuable time management skills.
I was really worried before I started about managing both, but I have been able to support myself and put myself through school, and I have an apartment. Just be upfront with your management about what your schedule needs to be, and make sure that you're staying prepared and planning ahead when it comes to completing your assignments.
So how many hours a week do you work?
Usually between 20 and 30.
And how many classes are you taking?
I have 15 credit hours. So this semester that's 4 classes, but usually it's 5.
I have a couple of jobs, so I make videos, and then I work at Applebee's, and I substitute teach, but I say that lightly because I've only done it once. It's totally doable. You just have to prioritize. You have to stay on top of things. And that's something I was really worried about coming into college. I was like, I have to work. And also with letting your managers know what your school schedule is, when you're thinking about that, I highly recommend you also consider how much time it's going to take to do homework. If you work every day that you don't have school, when will you have time to do homework? There's going to be a lot more of it than you've ever had in your whole life. And so I highly recommend considering that when you do work with your management to make a work schedule. So something I did that really helped, I saved up during the summer so that I think I didn't work for the first 3 months of college because I saved up a lot of money over the summer, and that was really helpful because then I had a really solid idea of how much time I actually needed to do homework and how much time I could actually work. I know that it's not always possible, but if at all possible, I highly recommend trying to save up enough to where you at least don't have to work for a couple weeks starting in college, so you have an idea of what you can handle.
Just remember that you are super smart and you're capable, and you can do it. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. You can do anything. You can do anything. I'm serious. You can do whatever you want. You can do it.
Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.